How's it going, trainers? And welcome to our Shadow Raids weekend review for Pokemon Go. Today, we've got a really exciting discussion here where we're going to be talking about the Shadow Mewtwo raids that happened at the end of May. I've got Chris with me right now, and we're going to be talking about our experience with these raids, what was good about them, what wasn't so good, and then we're going to offer some solutions of how they could be improved for the future. So, how's it going, Chris?
Doing pretty well. I thought it was a pretty interesting weekend, but yeah, let's get into things.
Yeah, so this was part of the Rising Shadows event, which ran from May 22nd until May 28th. And during the first part of it, we had the introduction of Shadow Raids in Pokemon Go. And for that, we had Shadow 1 and 3 star raids, which was kind of a good way to ease into the system a bit. It was a lot of fun doing those 1-star raids for the Shadow Beldum and the Shadow Bellsprout. So I thought those were fun. Chris, did you do any Shadow Raids during the week?
Yeah, I was a big fan of having Beldum in Shadow Raids especially, and also Sneasel in the Tier 3s. These are really desirable Shadow Pokemon, so I was happy to be able to raid for them. And they also had an IV floor, which was nice to get higher IV Shadow Beldum and Shadow Sneasel, so I really enjoyed those.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm glad you were able to do them. And I myself, I did a few of the Beldum that were around my workplace, and those are pretty cool to do. It's nice to have another chance to get them when they weren't with the Rocket Leaders. But yeah, in addition to that, after those Shadow Raids happened, Shadow Mewtwo joined in on the action, and you could raid for that as well in Tier 5 Shadow Raids.
Yeah, that was really something else. It was really cool to actually be able to challenge Shadow Mewtwo and get multiple. You weren't just restricted to Giovanni encounters.
Yeah, definitely. So, Chris was coming home for Memorial Day weekend to visit, and we were pretty excited for whatever raid boss was going to be happening that weekend. And wouldn't you know, it's one of the most top tier Pokemon for Legendary Raid, Shadow Mewtwo. So, if you ask me, that was pretty exciting, and we couldn't wait to do some. Now, unfortunately for us, the weather on Saturday was a total washout. You know, it was cold, it was rainy, it's not really the kind of weather that you want to raid in. So, in terms of Mewtwo raids, we were only able to do 2 throughout the entire day, which I'm so glad that we were able to do some, but it was definitely a lot less than we had actually planned to do.
Yeah, it was nice that we were able to get some in and kind of ease into things so we could learn the ropes of how to beat these Pokemon. We had a small group there, and it was nice that we were able to, learn how to take it down.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Now, as for our Sunday raid experience, the weather was so much better than Saturday. We had a few sprinkles here and there, but for the most part, it was warm and sunny out. Also, we kind of lucked out because around like 10:30 in the morning, there were a bunch of raids that showed up on the local college campus. So we headed over there after breakfast, and we actually found a massive group doing a raid train. I want to say there was like 25 or 30 people doing it. So it definitely felt like the old days of Pokemon Go when you had maxed out lobbies for legendary raids.
Yeah, there were a ton of us, and we had enough for 2 groups of players for most of the raids, which was really cool. It made the raids overall a whole lot easier than we had done the previous day when we only had about 4 or 5 people. But yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it definitely was a lot of fun.
But yeah, so let's talk about now what we thought was the real good of this event and the bad as well. So let's start off with the good.
Yeah, for sure. So when it came to this event, I think there was 4 main positive points that came out of it. Starting things off, I was really happy that Mewtwo was in Shadow Raids for a whole 2 days. Gotta be honest with y'all, since this Pokemon is so usable, I kinda expected it to be either limited to a 3-hour window or a single day in raids. But seeing that it was in raids for a whole 2 days was really exciting.
Yeah, I do think it was a pretty good period of time that we had the Mewtwo raids. It was longer than, a single day, as you said, and being able to coordinate across a couple days. So for us, we obviously had all that rain on Saturday, but it was nice that we at least had Sunday to go out and do some more.
Yeah, definitely. So another thing I want to mention is also we got a good amount of Shadow Shards from completing these raids. As you know from earlier in the week, if you beat Rockets, either Grunts or Leaders, or did Shadow Raids, you got Shadow Shards. And if you got 4 of those, you could purify them into a Purified Gem, which could be used to subdue Shadow Pokemon when they get enraged during raids. And throughout this entire week, I was just saving all my Purified Gems and all my Shadow Shards, and I was getting 1 at a time, and it was just an annoying buildup. But with the Mewtwo raids, I was seeing anywhere from 5 minimum to up to 12 or 13 per raid. So you're getting roughly 2 to 3 Purified Gems per raid, and that's a really good makeup for after you use them all during a raid.
Yeah, I was definitely worried about using all your purified gems during one Shadow Mewtwo raid, and then going to another and not having enough of them. But just the fact that it replenished them really well for you, that was really nice.
Yeah, definitely. Also, the overall difficulty is definitely something I want to bring up. When this was first announced, everyone thought it was going to be terrible. Like, it was going to be super hard. You're going to need, like, 7 or 8 trainers. You're going to need a massive group. But after doing it on that first day, we realized, this was fairly easy to, like, if you had a good team with, like, a trio or 4 people, like, you could easily take it down with that. You wouldn't need, like, a massive amount of trainers to take it down.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I was really concerned about that too, especially with the new enraged mechanic with these shadow raids. I was concerned that Mewtwo would boost its defense and attack so much that, you wouldn't be able to take it down with a smaller group. But I think we all kind of overestimated it a bit, and it was pretty easy to take down. Especially with the purified gems, I was worried that those wouldn't work as well, but we all got those to work pretty well, and our Mewtwo was subdued pretty much in no time. And yeah, we were able to take it down pretty quickly after that.
Yeah, definitely. And really just overall just was really happy about that.
Yeah, same here. And I will say, it was a pretty fun event as it stands. I know we both had some fun, but now let's kind of move on to some of the issues that we had with the weekend event with Shadow Mewtwo.
Yeah, some of the not so great stuff about it. So, the big thing, and I think a lot of people are going to agree with us on this, was having these as exclusively as local raids really hurt. And this kind of felt weird in a sense, considering they just limited the remote passes to 5 a day. You would only be able, if you raided every single day of the event and did the earlier time zones on Friday and Monday, you could only do 20 remoted Mewtwo through the weekend. That's honestly not a whole lot compared to the numbers we were previously hearing about from some of the articles about remote raiding, like where people were doing like 100 plus a day, stuff like that. But 20 is not that bad, but I think it also really affects those that don't have like big communities. I know we used Campfire a bit, and there were some raids that we pinged on that didn't even get any traction, depending on the area.
Yeah, while I did find Campfire to be super helpful for our community, you really can't say that for every single community out there. As I was looking online with some other people's experiences, not everyone had a community around them to where they could easily get to a gym and have other people show up at all. And so that's where I really think they should have allowed remote raiding, even if they had some caveats to it. We'll talk a little bit later as to what we would improve with this event, but I do think there were ways they could include remote raiding with this event and not make it too broken. I mean, we did see that remote raiding itself has already been nerfed, so the fact that they didn't even allow it here just kind of felt like kicking trainers while they were down.
Yeah, definitely. So ultimately, we just think keeping these as local raids really wasn't the best option to go forward with this event. So the next thing that I think wasn't exactly so great about it was the lack of a structured time to do these raids, or really just the lower times of the egg pools and all that. There was no structure with these. They were just kind of thrown in like regular raids, like they pop just wherever they want. And the problem with that is when you have a structured event like a raid day, you have 3 hours so people can coordinate like where they want to go. But with these raids popping up all over the place, it didn't exactly encourage like walking in some areas. Like I know for our second day, we did a lot of driving versus walking. And that's just so we could get to raids. Like the campus had 3 raids, and there was one like a mile and a half down the road. It kind of goes against in a way like what they want to do, like the exploration of it. So I kind of would prefer if they had like a structured timing, more of a structured timing to do it, so we can coordinate it better instead of just car raiding.
Yeah, I think that was one of the lesser parts of this event. That it did encourage driving around to find all the raids near you. It wasn't something that I was a huge fan of. And to go along with that, another point that we weren't super excited with was that while Saturday was nice because it was exclusively shadow raids, Sunday wasn't as much. We still had shadow raids like Mewtwo and the Tier 1 and Tier 3s popping up, but they stopped boosting shadow raids only on Sunday, so we had things like Mega Altaria and normal Tier 1 and Tier 3 raids and Regigigas legendary raids popping up. And for an event that only happened for the single weekend, that was kind of frustrating. I really don't see why they couldn't have boosted it just for those 2 days. And if someone really wanted a Regigigas, they could have waited until, the event was over.
Yeah, definitely. That part about it left me, scratching my head a bit, because it's like, I think in the announcement they said it was going to be boosted through the whole weekend, and yet it only felt like it was boosted on Saturday, whereas Sunday, like, they brought everything back, so I don't know. Like, it's just crazy, especially with us, with the weather and stuff. Like, we missed out pretty much on that whole Shadow Day coming to Sunday, and it's like, oh, now everything's back, so now it's going to be even harder to find them, which is why we also had to drive around a lot to find these raids, because they weren't spawning as frequently as they were on Saturday.
Yeah, and I think it all kind of goes into the idea that with these being local raids, you really need more of them to appear and more frequently so you can get people together. But when they're not spawning as much, you can't get local people together if they're not spawning as much at all, so that was pretty frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if a random raid shows up halfway across town and it's not really in a populated area, no one's really going to want to do it.
Yeah, it felt overall pretty disjointed. And to go along with that, it's still, while we did appreciate it being kind of a condensed time, being the whole weekend, it still didn't feel like enough time for such a useful, popular Pokemon. Really just having the 2 days was kind of sad and unfortunate.
Yeah, I think for me, when I read the initial announcement for this event, I was thinking like, oh, that's cool, it's going to be in raids for a whole week, and it's going to be boosted on the weekends. But then after rereading it, it's like, oh, so we're just going to have the 1 and 3 star Shadow raids during the week, and then Mewtwo on Saturday, Sunday. Like, I don't know, it doesn't really work out for some people. Like, I know for some, like a lot of people, like they probably had one of the days to go out and raid, but there's people that work on weekends, they have family commitments, like they're going out of town, so they're on vacation in an area that doesn't have gyms, so it really, could have been spanned out a bit more. And we'll talk about more about that in our solutions coming up. But there's one last thing I want to bring up about that could have been improved with these raids, or it wasn't as great. When you got rewards for these raids, the potions and revives were kind of on the lower spectrum of what you got. And the problem with that is because of how hard this Mewtwo hits, like you're going through a lot of your usual Pokemon for this. Like you're going through your regular Mewtwo's, you're going through your Darkrai's, you're going through your Giratina origin forms. And I think after like the 3rd raid, like I realized I was down like 10 to 12 Pokemon because of like all like the heavy hitters they kept hitting when it was enraged. So it really would have benefited to have increased potions and revives as rewards, or have quests out there that we could get them as well.
Yeah, I think part of what made this such an issue is, from what I saw, the Tier 5 Shadow Mewtwo raids, they had the same amount of reward drops as a normal legendary raid, and that might be fine, but you often got the Shadow Shards from one of those drops, or maybe even a couple of them, and that was nice as we discussed earlier, but that also means it's taking up a slot for something like healing items. So for me, especially when I had been doing so many rockets this past week, I was running low on healing items. And so when I was losing all these Pokemon to Shadow Mewtwo because it hits like a truck, I wasn't able to heal many of them up, which was kind of disappointing.
Yeah, definitely. So moral is more potions, more revives, better chances to get them, just stuff like that. Now, so far we've talked about some of the good stuff that happened with these raids and some of the not so great stuff that happened with these raids, but now let's talk about some solutions if Niantic ever brings this event back for like another Shadow weekend. I think these are some things that we would really like to see added to this system so, this event could be much better for the next time it comes around.
Yeah, so I think one of the big things that they could add, as most people would agree, would be to allow remote raid passes, in some capacity at least, with these raids. There were so many people that we heard about in rural areas who couldn't gather people, so they really had no opportunity to get Shadow Mewtwo. Even when they tried to go to local gyms near them that had the raids, they really weren't seeing many people turn up. And so I think allowing remote raiding would not only make it easier for those types of people, but even those who have smaller communities of maybe 2 or 3 people who couldn't take down a Shadow Mewtwo, they could potentially invite people and get some help to take down these raids. And I do think there's ways that they could balance things out if they wanted to still incentivize in-person raiding. for example, if the remote raiders couldn't use purified gems, I think that would be a pretty fair nerf to them while still allowing them to participate overall.
Yeah, exactly. And, as I mentioned earlier in the video, if you did all your remote raids throughout the weekend, you're only doing 20 Mewtwo total. Like, that's really not a whole lot compared to, like, the hundreds that have been talked about previously. And also, like, I can't imagine that everyone's going to be doing all their 20. Like, they may do, like, 5 on Saturday and just call it at that. Like, I don't know. So really, we just think they should have allowed remotes to be used during this event.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Now, the next thing that I think could improve this event is have Mewtwo appear during the whole event, not just on the weekends. And during the week it could be a little less common, and it wouldn't be part of the raid hour at 6 o'clock, but, it would still encourage people to go out and try to find them if they're around them. And then you could boost it during the weekend, so you'd still have that boosted time, but have a little bit extra time for people who couldn't get out and do it, like, during that weekend.
Yeah, I agree. It would allow people to do a few more so they're not pressured to do it just during the weekend. So I think that would be a good change, yeah.
And then, alternatively, what they could do is still have Mewtwo during the 2-day event, but also offer the raid day style of raiding for it during, like, 11 to 2, where it's still going through the whole day, and then you have that 3-hour window where people could meet up at, like, their local park or campus or, anywhere that there's a lot of gyms and just go at it, walk around, meet people. And I think that would really, remove that car raiding, so to say.
Yeah, I agree. I think leaving it the whole weekend is a good idea, but then having that kind of increased raid time within it would help people gather and, do a bunch of raids together at a specific time. So yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah, so glad you agree. So now we're coming up on the end of the video, and really just to give my overall thoughts about this event, I thought the weekend was really fun overall. It was great to see Shadow Mewtwo back, and with a higher IV floor than what we've seen with Giovanni. It had the 666 IV floor, so that allowed you to get some higher IV Shadow Mewtwo's, a little bit easier. I'm definitely glad that more people had access to Shadow Mewtwo now. With Giovanni, it was sporadic when you could get it. You can only get like one at a time based on how many of those radars you had, but this was a great opportunity for people to get a few and, boost up their raid teams.
Yeah, I think it was a really great event overall. I know we had a lot of fun with it. So yeah, I'm really hoping that they do this sort of event again, hopefully with some of those suggestions that we made to make it a little bit better, especially the remote raiding requirement. But yeah, overall, for what the event was, I'd say I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. So guys, now we want to know what you think about the raids from this past weekend. Be sure to let us know down in the comments what you thought were good, what you thought could be improved, just tell us about your experience because we really want to hear about it.
Yeah, and if you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming content. We'll have plenty more discussions like this one, along with other analyses and news videos.
Yep, we got lots more coming that we think you're really going to like. So until next time, thank you all so much for watching. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you all next time. Take care.